The story kicks off with our protagonist swinging his blade with overwhelming might, cutting down a horde of goblins with zero effort thanks to his insane speed and power. Then the scene shifts. A lone traveler is sprinting down a forest path, goblins hot on his heels. Just when things look fatal, a squad of warriors suddenly appears and wipes out the monsters in an instant, saving his life. Meanwhile, back in the city, we find our protagonist starving, clutching his empty stomach. The same warriors return, celebrating their victory, boasting about leveling up and the treasures they gained. Hearing their cheers, the protagonist sinks into despair. He believes he'll never achieve something like that because he's cursed with a useless skill called Gluttony, a pathetic ability that only leaves him constantly hungry. Later, the warriors spend their loot on new weapons and run into the Holy Knight's three brothers known as the BULLIED trio. Sir Hatto immediately punches a man for a supposed insult, and Memio coldly reminds everyone that insulting a Holy Knight means death. The third brother, however, orders restraint, warning the man not to repeat his mistake. Watching from the shadows, the warriors grow uneasy. Lady Rosie is among the Holy Knights. Back at the castle gates, our protagonist struggles to endure his hunger until his shift ends. Raphael, one of the knights, approaches to ask if he finished his duty as a substitute. When he answers yes, Raphael tosses his pay onto the ground, forcing him to pick it up. Hatto then grabs his hand, shoving him to his knees and mocking him while his stomach growls. Outraged, Fate asks if he's trying to dishonor Blarick only to be struck down instantly. He explains that in this world, people are divided into the blessed and the damned, separated only by the special abilities granted by the gods. When he tries to stand again, Adol knocks him back down, and Raphael suggests giving him a harsher lesson. Just then, Roxy Hart arrives, furious at the knights for abusing those they swore to protect. She reminds them that guarding the gates is a sacred honor, forcing them to back off. Before leaving, Raphael insists that part of their duty is to provide work for the weak, but admits they simply see duty differently. Roxy helps Fate back to his feet, telling him that as fellow gatekeepers, they should support each other. Before parting, she asks him to tell her if they ever harass him again. He brushes it off, saying he's already used to it, leaving her silently troubled. That night, while eating dinner, her words echo in his mind. Still, he fears Raphael's temper and decides not to involve her. The tavern owner, noticing his bruises, warns him he could end up like the last one. Fate realizes that if this continues, they'll work him to death, though the tavern keeper secretly hopes that won't come true. Later, he wanders through the city, cursing his so-called gluttony skill that only leaves him starving. He laments not being born with a useful power, dreaming of becoming a warrior, a merchant, or even a craftsman. But deep down, he knows the truth. With nothing to his name, he'll always be crushed underfoot. Suddenly, he spots a group of thieves lurking around and rushes to warn Roxy. She orders him to cover the gate while she handles the situation. Moments later, a wounded thief missing an arm bursts through the gate. Despite his fear, he remembers Roxy's command and stands his ground. With one precise strike of his spear, he kills the thief instantly. At that moment, his gluttony skill awakens, boosting all his stats and granting him strange new abilities like appraisal and even telepathy. Shocked, he stares at the body, wondering why his skill triggered now. Roxy returns worried, and to his surprise, he hears her thoughts. Just as she decides to report the incident to her superiors, her voice vanishes from his mind. Fate suggests she should take the credit for the kill, but she refuses, reminding him it was his victory. Fate panics, afraid that Raphael will find out, and Roxy quickly understands how dangerous that would be. Grateful, she offers him a place within the Ard family as a reward. Fate is stunned by her proposal, but Roxy presses on, asking if he really plans to serve the Blurick family until they work him to death. She reminds him that he alone has the power to decide his destiny. Torn between his choices, he hesitates until Roxy repeats his own words about protecting the gates, assuring him that whatever happens next won't be his burden to bear. Trusting her, Fate finally accepts her offer, seeing this as a true honor. That night, back at home, he checks his stats, and every single one has skyrocketed past 100, something beyond belief. He also reflects on his new abilities, remembering how he heard Roxy's thoughts, which must have been telepathy. Suddenly, Gluttony surges again, twisting his body. With his boosted attributes, Fate wonders if he can finally take on monsters. The next day, he heads to the market searching for a weapon, but with only a few coins saved over 5 long years in the capital, the merchant scoffs that he can't afford anything worthwhile. Seeing his frustration, the merchant takes pity on him and offers an old blade he found in a barrel. It's in terrible shape, but Fate accepts and uses his appraisal skill to inspect it. Testing the weapons, one sword in particular catches his attention, an especially worn, battered blade. To his shock, it speaks. The sword introduces itself as Varisia, promising to serve him faithfully. And when she learns he bears the gluttony skill, she begs him to choose her, claiming they share the same cursed fate. Later, Fate strolls through town with Varisia at his side. Meanwhile, the Blurick brothers discuss Roxy's intention of hiring him. Memil suggests teaching Fate a harsh lesson for defying them, but Raphael dismisses it, saying Fate isn't even worth the effort. Still, Memil seethes, angry that Roxy criticized their way of guarding the gates, and points out that both their families belong to the kingdom's Big Five, meaning this could get complicated. Raphael brushes it off, saying he needs to head to the military district to continue his research on immortality, a statement that earns him his brother's mockery. Back with Fate, he and his new sword are suddenly attacked by a goblin. Guided by Varisia's warnings, Fate cuts it down, and once again, Gluttony awakens inside him. His stats skyrocket, granting him a massive surge of strength, but soon, he finds himself surrounded by even more goblins. Channeling Avaricia's techniques, he wipes them all out, each kill pushing his attributes even higher. When he checks his status, he realizes his endurance has also been boosted, with some stats breaking past 1,000. Shocked, he notices something unbelievable for the first time ever: he's not hungry. Curious, he asks Avaricia about these powers. She reveals the truth. Thanks to Gluttony, he can steal the attributes and techniques of his enemies. But there's a catch: he doesn't gain experience, which is why he remains stuck at level 1. She warns him to keep this a secret, as his skill defies the very laws of the gods. Fate is shaken, but Varisia reminds him he's no longer alone. They're partners now. Before leaving, she suggests he collect the goblin's ears to sell them. Later, Fate earns 3 silver coins and 8 bronze for the 38 ears he gathered. With the money, he dreams of finally buying meat, something he hasn't tasted in 5 years. But Varisia insists he should maintain her first. As he walks distracted, he bumps into a man carrying a little girl. The moment he touches him, Fate's telepathy activates. He senses the girl desperately needs help. Using appraisal, he discovers the man has a camouflage skill that hides his stats, even from Fate himself. Though he can't see everything, Fate decides to follow him to stop whatever dark plan he has. The man whispers to the crying girl that she'll become a toy for the Holy Knights, making her break down in fear. Fate steels himself, ready to intervene. The scene shifts to a religious school, where a nun teaches children the story of creation. All life was born from the goddess Place, who left behind a final gift: special powers called skills. After a prayer of thanks, everyone eats. Except one boy, who complains that the goddess isn't fair. Knights and warriors get powerful abilities, while his is worthless proof, he believes, that she abandoned him. The nun comforts him, but with tears in his eyes, the boy admits he wishes he'd been born in the old days, when everyone was equal. Their talk is cut short when another sister rushes in to report that Sarah is still missing. Back to the kidnapped girl, her captor mocks her and orders her to stay quiet. Deciding the job will take time, he leaves her alone for a moment. That's when Fate seizes the chance to rescue her. The girl calms at the sight of him until terror strikes again. The kidnapper returns, smirking. He sneers at Fate, saying he often meets fools chasing a fake sense of justice. But Fate, determined to protect the child, readies himself for battle. His enemy taunts him. Can he really fight while keeping her safe? Fate focuses on getting her out, but Avaricia cuts in, warning him that the man underestimates him, an opening he must exploit. Following her advice, Fate retreats, drawing away another swordsman who rushes him with blade in hand, threatening to run him through before he ever touches the girl. Fate hurls crates to throw him off and then strikes back. He soon realizes this foe has the sharpened blade skill. Guided by Avaricia, he targets the enemy's weapon, shattering it completely. Before delivering the killing blow, Fate demands answers. Who ordered Sarah's kidnapping? At first, the man refuses to speak, but Fate mercilessly tortures him until he finally breaks. The mastermind was none other than Haddo Blurick. Hearing the name, Fate is struck by memories of the abuse he suffered at Haddo's hands as a child. Later, he finally manages to bring the little girl to safety. Both of them, starving, decide to eat something together. When he asks her name, she shyly replies, Sarah. They buy meat in town, and the moment Sarah tastes it for the very first time, she bursts into tears of joy. Moved, Fate offers her his own portion as well. He then escorts her to the orphanage, where a nun is waiting. Sarah thanks him, calling him brother, a word that shakes him to his core. No one had ever thanked him before, especially not for what he always thought was a worthless curse, his insatiable hunger. Surprised to hear this, Sarah listens as Fate tells her to never give up on happiness, no matter how hard things get. These words echo his father's advice, the very words that carried him this far. Later that night, Fate checks his stats and discovers new skills: camouflage and one-handed sword technique. Avaricia congratulates him for unlocking his first technical skill, explaining that these abilities reveal hidden secrets of combat like striking twice in a single motion. Fate realizes that if the sharpened blade attack had actually landed, he would have died. Furious, he scolds Varicia for not warning him, but she cheekily replies she was too busy watching him play the hero. Fate denies being one, saying he would never have risked it had he known the danger. On the way home, Varicia reminds him that tomorrow he starts serving the Hart family and teases him about showing up dressed in rags. That's when Fate realizes he's never owned proper clothes in his life. At a tavern, rumors swirl. A celestial dragon has slain Sir Mason Hart in Gallia, leaving Roxy as heir to the family. People worry about whether she can control the Holy Knights, but the bartender quickly changes the subject, mentioning that Fate no longer passes by the tavern like he used to. The next day, dressed in brand new clothes, Fate is stunned by the sight of the Sacred Knights district. Roxy is waiting for him, and when she asks why he's so quiet, he blurts out that it's because she looks beautiful. Flustered, she blushes, telling him he should dress elegantly more often too. She then takes him to her father's grave, formally introducing Fate as the man who will help restore peace to the Hart Mansion. She explains that her father died in Gallia, a continent overrun by monsters where the Holy Knights are sent to contain them. That year, it was her family's turn. Though casualties are rare, a celestial dragon hidden for 1,000 years re-emerged and annihilated his entire battalion. Fate clenches his fists in frustration, wishing he had known sooner. Yet despite her pain, Roxy worries for him. She tells him not to despair because now she is the head of the Hart family, and with his help, they will bring happiness back to their home. Fate accepts with pride. Roxy extends her hand to seal the promise, but he hesitates, afraid his telepathy might betray her thoughts. Just as he struggles to find a way out, the moment is broken by the arrival of Aru, the family's maid. With a piercing gaze, she reminds Fate to always uphold the dignity expected of a Hart family servant. Later, we see Fate savoring a piece of meat, enjoying it with childlike delight, since it's been so long since he's tasted such a feast. Remember, he had given up his own skewer to Sarah earlier, and the other servants notice, watching him curiously. In the next scene, Fate tends to the garden, trimming plants. Some fellow servants suggest he take a break. He replies to Oliver that he plans to rest once he's done. Oliver and his companion Minerva warn him not to overdo it, reminding him he's only been working there for a week. Minerva admits that, at first, she thought he was a weirdo for talking to a sword. Oliver jokes that Fate went half crazy when eating meat, making him blush. Embarrassed, Fate explains he hadn't tasted any in 5 years, earning their sympathy. While they laugh, a loud growl from his stomach catches everyone off guard despite the fact they had just eaten. Ashamed, Fate mutters that he's still growing. At that moment, Aru approaches and informs him that Lady Roxy wishes to see him. Fate joins her for tea. She asks if he's gotten used to life at the mansion, but he doesn't answer right away, distracted by the constant pangs of hunger gnawing at him. Roxy has to call his name several times before he reacts. When she calls him Faye, it stirs memories of his father, who used to call him the same. Fate admits his father was killed by a monster. Roxy, with a bittersweet tone, replies that hers suffered the same fate. Curious, Fate asks why she calls him Faye. She confesses it's an affectionate nickname because now, he's part of her family. The words leave him red-faced. He insists she use his real name, but she refuses. Suddenly, his body weakens, and everything fades. The scene shifts. Fate wakes in his room, finding a letter from Roxy asking him to rest for the following day. He consults Avaricia about what's happening to him. The sword explains grimly. Once Gula has tasted a soul, there's no turning back. The more he feeds it, the stronger he grows, yet the greater his insatiable hunger becomes. If he ever stops feeding it, he'll either die or lose control, attacking anyone nearby. Avaricia warns that his eyes now reflect that monstrous appetite. Staring into a mirror, Fate gasps. His eyes have turned red. Later, in disguise, he sneaks into a group of warriors preparing for a monster hunt. His sword points out that they look like prey to him now, a sign that his predatory instincts are taking over. Avaricia reminds him that in this state he gains night vision, scent tracking, and the ability to paralyze weaker prey with fear. In battle, he freezes several goblins and slaughters them with ease. But still, he is not satisfied. Avaricia urges him to hunt something stronger in the goblin forest. There, Fate fights tougher monsters, but even after multiple victories, the hunger persists. Only after a long series of clashes does his appetite finally calm. Shaken, Fate swears he never wants to feel that sensation again. The sword advises him to hunt periodically to keep Gula under control. Just as he prepares to leave, the Goblin King appears wielding the skill Regeneration. Avaricia explains its value, and Fate instantly decides he must claim it. He tracks the monster, finding it devouring a human corpse. Disgust churns in his gut, but he seizes the moment, slicing off its hand. Enraged, the Goblin King retaliates with a flurry of blows, all dodged by Fate. At Avaricia's command, he counterattacks, killing the beast and stealing its ability. The sword explains he can now modify its shape and functions in exchange for tribute points. Fate refuses at first, balking at the cost, but Avaricia warns him without accepting he'll lose the right to wield her. Reluctantly, he agrees. Avaricia shifts form into a magic bow. She instructs him, simply draw the string, and arrows will appear on their own. To Fate's astonishment, they even track their targets. After another hunting session, Fate takes the goblin ears to Sarah's orphanage to exchange for food. The next day, he nearly mistakes Lady Roxy for a stranger. When he announces her presence, he startles her. Flustered, he apologizes, asking if she really plans to visit the castle dressed like that. Annoyed, Roxy leans closer and whispers she's actually heading into the city for a secret inspection. No one must know she left. If Aru discovers she went out without the formal attire of the Hart family's head, she'll be scolded harshly. The protagonist apologizes for interrupting her mission and prepares to return to his duties, but Roxy stops him, assigning him a special task: to act as her escort during the inspection. Upon arriving in the city, Fate notices how much Rock enjoys walking through the streets. However, when he accidentally calls her by her real name, she scolds him, warning that someone might discover her identity. From that moment on, she insists he call her Rock. Annoyed, Fate replies rather sharply, which makes her believe he is upset with her. She apologizes, but he clarifies that he wasn't speaking to her at all. Even so, Roxy admits she's excited about the mission, a confession that makes both of them blush. Suddenly, Avaricia mocks Fate, who angrily mutters back at the sword. Alarmed by how roughly he handles his weapon, Roxy interrupts him. For the first time, she really notices the blade, curiosity glimmering in her eyes. Fate panics he can't let her discover the secret of his skill, but distracted, he drops the sword. Roxy quickly catches it before it hits the ground. She asks to see it more closely. After examining the weapon, she remarks that it's in poor condition and suggests taking it to the Ard family's blacksmith. Without pressing further, she proposes they continue their mission. At the market, Roxy's gaze lingers on a display of grapes. The vendor proudly explains they come from the Ard family's vineyards. Smiling at the coincidence, she asks if she may try one. The merchant kindly offers her two, and Roxy shares one with Fate. He is astonished by its taste, which delights her until she slips and reveals the grapes are from her family's estate. Thinking quickly, Fate tells the merchant the young woman's family simply works for the Ards. The vendor believes him, and both Roxy and Fate breathe a sigh of relief. Suddenly, an announcement cuts through the market. The sacred knights have arrived. The crowd reacts with unease. Ever since Roxy's father died, the knights have grown insufferable. As one of them approaches, Fate's stomach growls loudly, catching unwanted attention. The knight mocks him and prepares to strike, but Roxy intervenes, halting the attack. The crowd begins to suspect her identity. Avaricia whispers a solution. Fate should pose as her lover to throw them off. Unfortunately, he repeats the idea out loud, and Roxy hears it. To his shock, she agrees it's a good plan. Taking his arm, she pretends to be his girlfriend. After a hasty apology to the knight, they successfully divert suspicion and slip into a nearby alley. There, Fate realizes he can hear Roxy's thoughts while still holding her arm. Flustered, he pulls away, and she quickly lies, claiming she's used to such situations. Soon after, they stop at a gemstone stall. Roxy picks up a beautiful blue stone. The vendor explains that certain mineral rocks contain hidden gems inside, inviting them to try their luck for 10 bronze coins. Avaricia informs Fate that he could use his appraisal ability to see what's inside, but warns that merchants hate anyone who uses it. Roxy continues admiring the gem, looking for a moment like an ordinary girl rather than a sacred knight. Seeing the scene, the vendor offers a discount, suggesting the young man buy it as a gift. Grateful but modest, Roxy decides to put the stone back. Then she turns to Fate and asks if he knows any warriors. He mentions Oliver and Minerva, but she explains she means active warriors because she wants to question them. At that moment, they overhear rumors, goblins slain, and whispers of a roaming monster. The words unsettle Fate. He knows they're talking about him. Determined, Roxy follows the speakers, asking for more details. They direct her to the local warriors. Without hesitation, she asks Fate to take her to their gathering place. The scene shifts to a tavern, where the barkeeper tells Fate that the seat he chose was reserved for someone believed to be dead. Shocked but overjoyed to see him alive, the man welcomes him warmly. Fate introduces Rocky as his co-worker. The barkeeper teases him, joking that he has returned with a girlfriend. Embarrassed, both Fate and Roxy blush so hard that they accidentally break their cups. Later, the barkeeper tells them about a warrior who grew rich after discovering countless goblin corpses. During the war, he had stumbled across a mountain of bodies, their ears still intact. The story captures Roxy's attention. She reasons that if a warrior had killed them, he would have taken the loot. This means the culprit might actually be a wandering monster that migrated from another region. The barkeeper agrees that if such a creature exists, it would be disastrous for trade. To buy or sell anything, merchants must first cross the goblin-infested plains to reach the capital, and with a deadly creature roaming there, no one would dare travel. Fate listens, heavy with guilt, knowing all of this is the result of his own actions. At that moment, Mr. A.D. interrupts them. Seeing Fate, he nearly faints, convinced he is a ghost. Once the truth is explained, he joins them at the table and confesses that he suspects a leech is behind the recent disturbances in the city. Because of the threat, he says, measures will soon be taken. Roxy, surprised, confirms the possibility she had already heard something similar from a warrior friend. Avarisha, however, thinks to herself that if Fate ever clashes with the sacred knights, they will fall easily. Fate, on the other hand, isn't worried about the fight. What troubles him is Roxy. Curious about her interest in the wandering monster, a doll presses her with questions, making her visibly nervous. Suddenly, a group of rogue warriors barges into the tavern and begins harassing Roxy. Fate instinctively steps forward to protect her, but she pushes him aside with ease, unintentionally revealing her true identity. Everyone in the tavern stares in stunned silence. Terrified, the warriors beg her forgiveness and even try to bribe her with money. But Roxy firmly rejects their offer. With sorrow in her voice, she confesses how much it pains her that the very people they swore to protect now fear them. She declares that the sacred knights must defend the people and the world so that everyone can laugh together in peace. She adds that she shares the same dream as her late father. Her words move everyone present. Listening, Fate silently vows to follow her until that dream is fulfilled. The scene changes. Fate is now taking Avarisha to the Ard family's blacksmith. Later, as they walk through the city, he and Roxy thank each other for their help earlier in the day. Fate then asks why she hadn't known anything about the wandering monster hunt. With a heavy heart, Roxy explains that the Blerick family was put in charge, and they didn't bother to inform her. Soon after, they encounter Hido, who appears to be bothering a small boy. Roxy orders him to stop, but Memi insists he was only guarding the child because he was lost. Unconvinced, Roxy tells Fate to help the boy and then announces to the Blericks that she will be the one to take care of him now. Angered, she confronts Raphael about why she was left uninformed about the monster hunt. Raphael coldly replies that he assumed she would be too preoccupied with thoughts of her late father. Roxy shoots back that she is perfectly fine. The Blericks retreat, but not before Ido snarls at Fate, telling him to behave like the scum he is. The boy, frustrated, shouts that he hates the sacred knights. Roxy apologizes to him. Curious, Fate asks what happened. With tears in his eyes, the child replies that he lost his mother. Thus begins the search for her. Along the way, Fate recalls the time when he was lost, right after his own father's death 5 years ago. He wonders what became of the sacred knight who helped him back then. As night fell, Fate feared they would not find the boy's mother. Seeing his unease, Roxy offered to take the child to her home for the night so they could continue searching the next day. But just then, the boy's mother appeared and embraced him with tears of relief. Fate, equally relieved, glanced at Roxy, captivated by her beauty. Noticing his gaze, she gently reminded him that they needed to return before they got into trouble. Fate promised her that if they did end up in trouble, he would stay by her side. Upon their return, Aru scolded Andos for his reckless behavior. Later that evening, Fate spoke privately with Avarisha about how to hunt monsters without letting Roxy discover the truth. The next day, they went searching for a disguise and found a mask that altered the perception of others. Avarisha assured him it would change the way people saw him, and Fate bought it immediately. He also purchased a special mineral to give Roxy as a token of gratitude. When she opened it, she discovered inside the very gemstone she had long admired. Avarisha accused Fate of cheating by using his power, but Roxy, delighted, offered him a year's worth of meat as thanks. Embarrassed, he declined. Elsewhere, the Sacred Knights held a meeting to discuss an expedition to Gallia. At the same time, a group of warriors complained that the knights never solved problems until Leech, the true cause of their misfortune, appeared. One of them urged the others to run. When Fate overheard them calling him Leech the Corpse, he couldn't help but smile at the title. Avarisha asked if it was time to leave, but he answered that not yet. He wanted to improve his attributes before they began hunting him down. Later, while working as a servant, Fate grumbled about how difficult it was to live a double life. Just then, Roxy approached him, saying she had a secret mission for him. Fate assumed it was another inspection, but instead she led him to the Hart family lands, where endless vineyards stretched across the fields. After seeing the grapes at the market, Roxy had decided to bring him to the vineyard so he could admire them up close. Eventually, they arrived at Roxy's home, where her mother, Aisha, came out to greet them, even though Roxy insisted it wasn't necessary. Aisha explained that she was feeling better than usual that day, and then asked her daughter about the young man accompanying her. Roxy introduced Fate as a servant she wanted her mother to meet. A little flustered, Fate bowed and introduced himself. Aisha welcomed him warmly, then asked him to come closer so she could pose a question. She wanted to know if he liked her daughter. Roxy immediately flushed bright red. Fate, caught off guard, was left speechless by the sudden question, but Aisha quickly clarified. She only wanted to know how he regarded Roxy as his superior. Both young people sighed in relief. Kneeling, Fate solemnly declared that Roxy meant a great deal to him, and that if she allowed it, he would gladly give his life to serve her. His words made both Roxy and Aisha blush. Delighted by his response, Aisha smiled warmly, though Roxy, embarrassed, hurried her mother to her room to rest. Still confused, Fate asked if he had said something inappropriate. Aisha reassured him, explaining that her daughter always reacted that way when she was flustered. She also shared that, as a child, Roxy cried easily and became frantic whenever she saw insects. Fate was surprised, since he had only ever seen her act with firmness and strength. With a touch of nostalgia, Aisha admitted she still found it hard to believe that her little girl had become a sacred knight. What worried her most was that, since her father's death, Roxy had been forced to shoulder the family's leadership so suddenly. Fate assured Aisha that her daughter was an exemplary knight and that the people placed their full trust in her. In the next scene, Roxy entered her room and gazed with melancholy at the gifts and the photograph of her father. She recalled the day he had taught her how to wield a sword and how proud he was that she had become a sacred knight. Back then, Roxy had told him that she wanted to be just like him, laughing alongside everyone. Mason had replied that that was exactly how it should be, for she was a heart. Returning to the present, Roxy lamented that she had yet to fulfill that promise. The following day, Fate worked with the other servants harvesting grapes. A worker offered him freshly pressed juice, whose taste delighted him. The man explained that the Hart family had supported the vineyards for generations, something everyone was proud of. At the mention of Mason, the mood turned somber, for they all knew that Roxy still suffered from his loss. Fate was surprised to learn that Roxy herself had once taken part in the harvests every year, also using the opportunity to hunt monsters that attacked the fields, especially kobolds from the northern valley. The moment was broken when Fate's stomach rumbled, prompting laughter. Avaricia, his sword, remarked that it was normal, since he had only been eating goblins lately. Later, Roxy asked Fate to return without her, as she still had work to do. On his way back, Fate encountered a mysterious young woman with the same eyes as his own. He tried to use his appraisal skill, but was unable to perceive her attributes. She asked him if it wasn't too soon, something he didn't understand. Then she said she had come for the kobolds, but would leave them to him instead. Before departing, she reminded him that he owed her a favor for when they next met. Intrigued, Fate asked Avaricia if he knew who she was, but the sword claimed to have no idea. Fate pressed him, noting how he usually talked too much, but this time remained silent. Avaricia retorted that there were things even he didn't know. Later, Roxy arrived and asked Fate to carry half of the harvest. She explained that she had to distribute grapes, and while doing so, Fate once again spotted the mysterious girl. Roxy remarked that she thought she had seen her in Gallia, which shocked Fate, who believed that region had been destroyed. Roxy explained that 4,000 years ago, Gallia had been a great military power before being wiped out by a horde of monsters. Fate suggested that perhaps some had survived, but Roxy replied that she had never seen anyone of pure Gallian blood. On the way home, Fate asked his mistress if she would be safe hunting monsters on her own. She assured him she wouldn't be alone, local warriors would support her. However, during their walk, they dropped the basket of grapes and had to hurriedly gather them again. The next day, the Hart estate was found devastated. The grape fields had been destroyed, and the workers believed that monsters had feasted on them. Elsewhere, a large group of kobolds rested along a riverbank, while Roxy, Fate, and a band of warriors watched them. A scout reported movement in another area, and everyone waited to see what it was. Suddenly, a massive kobold emerged, shocking them all. Avaricia whispered to Fate that if just looking at it made him hungry, then he already knew what to do. On the brink of starvation, Fate realized he had to defeat the beast quickly before Roxy saw him in such a state, especially since the monster was level 5. Upon its arrival, it was called the Bearer of Lament. Valicia, upon seeing it, explained to Fate that this was a crowned beast, meaning it had been born from an immense accumulation of violence. Being very different from ordinary kobolds, she warned that it could cause him serious trouble. Back in the village, Roxy informed the villagers of what they had witnessed. When they complained that they wouldn't be able to do anything against the creature, she assured them that she would handle it personally. She asked everyone to remain calm and, with the determination of a sacred knight, declared that she would train and protect both the land and her people. The crowd cheered, and Roxy ordered them to take shelter except for the warriors who were to accompany her. Avaricia commented to Fate that Roxy would not be able to face the beast alone, as it was far too powerful for someone of her age and rank. Shortly after, one of the warriors requested more time to prepare for the battle, until the following day. Fate, seeing all organized, thought that a level 50 monster was far too much for him. Yet, he could not ignore the suffering of the Hart family's people, nor allow Lady Roxy to die. That night, Fate decided to go alone in search of the crowned kobold. Avaricia mocked his heroic attitude. From above, he observed the warrior kobolds protecting the beast. Avaricia asked about his plan, and he replied that he would fight with insatiable hunger. He drew his bow and fired the first arrow at the group, beginning his assault. During the battle, his Gula skill activated repeatedly. He launched his first attack at the crowned, but it used a soldier as a shield to block it. Fate continued eliminating kobolds to gain experience and new abilities, though upon reviewing his attributes, he realized he still wasn't ready to face it directly. Finally, with no other option, he attacked the crowned. He was shocked to see the monster stop his arrows with its hands. Avaricia suggested approaching to destroy it together, but the kobold counterattacked with its special technique, Calamitous Strike, capable of piercing armor and shattering bones and organs. Fate retreated, but another soldier attacked him. He managed to dodge, though he was injured. The crown struck again, leaving him barely any chance to escape. Fate narrowly evaded it, ending up more wounded. Avaricia tried to make him react while he lay in the river, apparently unconscious. In reality, he was faking it to deceive his enemies. When one approached, he cut off its arm and defeated it. Avaricia informed him that he could now use his hidden level 1 technique, which required 10% of his attributes. Fate agreed, and Avaricia transformed to execute the Bloody Ptarmigan, a devastating shot that destroyed the crowned beast. Seeing the devastation, Fate asked if it hadn't been excessive. Suddenly, Gula activated on its own, plunging him into a frenzy due to the vast number of high-quality souls he had absorbed. Avaricia warned that if he didn't control it, he could enter a state worse than enervation. Fate tried to resist, but the pain was intense. The next day, the Hart family warriors discovered the bodies of the massacred kobolds. Roxy, present at the scene, wondered who could have done it. Observing the large destruction, and later at home with her mother and Fate, she mentioned that she had seen a girl from Gallia a few days prior. Since Gallian warriors were said to be stronger than sacred knights, she believed the girl was responsible. Fate felt relieved, knowing they suspected nothing of him. Roxy happily commented that now she could finally rest. Aisha, in turn, noticed that her daughter smiled in a special way when she was with Fate. Later, in private, she asked the protagonist to stay by Roxy's side and support her. When Fate hesitated, Aisha clarified that she did not ask for strength or prestige, only that he helped sincerely. She told him that she herself had been a commoner with no abilities, yet she supported her husband, even though this caused difficulties for Roxy because only her father was a sacred knight, coughing and visibly ill. She confessed that she didn't have much time left and therefore begged him to take care of her daughter. Fate did not respond immediately, but promised to think it over. On the way home with Roxy, he wondered whether he was truly worthy of what had been asked of him, knowing that he was hiding his Gula ability. Later, we see him hunting goblins, although this time, they challenge his hunger. Avaricia warned him that goblins would no longer suffice, and that he needed to decide quickly or he would run out of time. The next day, covering his eye, he went to the tavern, convinced he did not deserve to be by Roxy's side. A man commented that a certain warrior would join the house of a monster called the Cadaver. This surprised Fate and the innkeeper, who said Otto only sought easy glory, avoiding participation in the upcoming expedition to Gallia, a move Fate deemed premature. Still fresh was the death of Sir Mason, and Adele remarked that a decision would soon be made, though he feared they might face the worst possible situation. Tension filled the air as the sacred knights prepared for new orders. In the next scene, all the knights gathered, attentive to the official instructions. Later, Roxy visited her father's grave to inform him that she had been assigned to the Gallia expedition and to request his protection. Fate, worried, interrupted her urgently, pleading that she not venture forth, fearing she might not return. Roxy, firm in her decision, responded that it was time to depart and there was no time to lose. Avaricia explained to Fate that the Hart family was seen as an obstacle by the Blerek and other knights, and that the entire expedition seemed designed to eliminate Roxy. This enraged Fate, who recognized the injustice and the hidden intentions of the Blerek. Meanwhile, they celebrated prematurely, anticipating Roxy's supposed elimination. Memi asked Ado to handle the rest of the situation. Curious, Ado wondered whether she and Raphael would travel to Tenberg, something he would have liked, but Memi clarified that they were going for an official investigation, not pleasure. Ado speculated whether the mission concerned immortality and asked Avarisha for the truth, but Raphael merely instructed him to take care of Leech. We then see Fate in disguise, aware that he could not disobey official orders, yet unwilling to let others be treated as disposable objects. At that moment, Ado appeared with a group of warriors, disdainfully asking if he was the cadaver. His men immediately attacked, but Fate noticed that they moved strangely, as if slow. Avaricia explained that this was the effect of his superior attributes. Fate planned to defeat them with a calamitous strike, and executed it with overwhelming precision, leaving Ado completely shocked by his power. The remaining soldiers, terrified, fled, forcing Ado to face him personally. Fate decided to remove his mask, revealing his identity. Ado, incredulous, demanded to know how he could be so skillful, receiving only evasive answers. Furious, he boasted of being the second son of the Blerek and holding the title of Sacred Knight. Fate analyzed his attributes and discovered that Ado possessed the sacred sword technique. He asked Varicia if it could be broken, and she confirmed that no sacred sword from Orichalco had an advantage over him, assuring him that he could attack without restriction. Ado attempted to intimidate him using his Great Cross technique, believing it could kill him, but Fate easily dodged and destroyed his sword. Ado was left utterly terrified, unable to react. Fate held the other half of the sword and threw it to the ground, demanding that Ado pick it up. When he saw Ado recoil, he verbally humiliated him, calling him pathetic for fleeing. Grabbing him by his armor, Fate reminded him of his own words about dogs needing discipline, then hurled him against a tree and struck him with devastating force. Ignoring his pleas, Fate lifted him and applied his bloody Darmagon technique, inflicting severe injuries. Before finishing him off, Fate demanded answers about Roxy. Ado revealed that she had been assigned to a mission in his kingdom to protect the citizens, and begged him to cancel the expedition. The protagonist silenced him, thrust his sword through him, and eliminated him, activating the Gula ability. This triggered Fate's acquisition of the sacred sword technique and significant attribute enhancements. Avaricia told him that he was now practically a sacred knight, but Fate rejected the notion, aware that the capital would never accept him and that it was not what he desired. Anticipating this, Avaricia agreed to unlock his second level. Fate discovered that he could now transform into a giant scythe of cursed blade, capable of cutting through anything without limitations. Seeing this form, he confessed he wished he could cut Roxy's journey to Kalia at its root. Worried about the dangers she would face, the scene shifts to Faith, reflecting on everything that had occurred, aware of the enormous responsibility resting on him and the secret of his Gula ability. He knew he had to protect Roxy without anyone suspecting his true power while preparing to face the challenges ahead. The scene changes, showing Roxy preparing to depart for Galia. Before leaving, she asked her servants to disguise themselves, reminding them that the 3 years they would spend there would pass incredibly quickly. She then approached Aru and entrusted her with all matters in her absence, which Aru accepted without hesitation. Later, Roxy approached Fate, who appeared visibly sad, assuring her firmly that they would meet again. Feeling responsible, Fate changed his demeanor and asked Roxy to take care of herself, promising that their reunion would come. Roxy left, leaving behind a trail of mixed emotions. Later, Aru showed Fate the recommendation letter Roxy had left him, explaining that with it, he could find employment with a mansion owner and thus stay out of the Blerek's reach. Seeing the letter, Fate reflected on how Roxy had cared for him until the last moment but decided to refuse it, preferring to follow his own path as a warrior. Meanwhile, Fate spoke with his sword, considering that if he wanted to prevent Roxy from going to Galia alone, he would have to support her directly. Oliver and Minerva bid him farewell, reminding him he could return whenever he wanted. They also revealed that Haru had paid him for his time, surprising Fate, who had expected a much smaller reward. After saying goodbye to all his friends, Fate embarked on his journey to Galia, determined to protect Roxy. Meanwhile, Roxy gave a speech before the kingdom's dignitaries. She explained that she would take her father's position and needed to head to the frontier to confront the awakened divine dragon, thus protecting Saithford and all its people. The soldiers and citizens present cheered her bravery. Miriam approached to offer her unconditional support, but they were interrupted by Mukagan, another volunteer warrior. Miriam rebuked his reckless behavior, and Mukagan confessed that he wanted to test his strength and that his main motivation was to honor Sir Mason, under whose command he had once served. Roxy thanked him and asked if his family opposed his journey, to which Mukagan replied that they only asked him to bring back relics from the area, as he came from a family of scholars. Meanwhile, Rain investigates Cadaver, the lich known as Cadaver. Her companion presents him with dead goblins, and points out that their wounds were not caused by ordinary arrows. After consulting ancient texts, Rain concludes that the injuries were inflicted by magical arrows derived from the Black Sword ability, one of the weapons of the deadly sins, capable of manipulating magical power and unlocking new skill possibilities. Fascinated, she confesses her desire to witness them in action. In the next scene, Fate travels with other warriors and learns that they will soon arrive in Tetra, a city renowned for its commerce and the best goods in the south. Observing the city, he notes that it hasn't changed much, and Avaricia asks if he has been there before. Fate recalls visiting the city 5 years ago on his way to the capital. While arranging transportation to Gallia, a man informs him that he cannot depart immediately, as the route is dangerous due to monsters. Fate agrees and plans to leave the following day. As he leaves, his stomach growls loudly, and Avaricia advises him to take the opportunity to eat, gather information, and buy some provisions worthy of him. Fate decides to indulge in meat with the money Aru had given him. Entering a tavern, he hears a man begging for help from some warriors. They humiliate him, claiming his payment is insufficient to eliminate the monster threatening his village, forcing him to kneel. Fate intervenes decisively, demanding that they stop harassing the man. The warriors attempt to confront him, but Fate demonstrates his power, leaving them speechless. The man thanks the protagonist, and Fate realizes he already knows him. It is Seth, a boy who had bullied him as a child. Seth is astonished to recognize him, and Fate recalls how, years ago, when their village was attacked, his own father had come to the rescue, inspiring him and teaching him to work with herbs due to his father's frequent injuries. The death of his father had profoundly affected Fate, and the village's resentment toward him intensified, as they did not want another mouth to feed. However, in the present, Seth kneels, pleading for Fate's help, and Fate reflects on Seth, the mayor's son who had exiled him, unsure whether he should intervene. Avaricia persuades him, assuring that accepting the task will also allow him to satisfy his Gula ability. Finally, Fate agrees and tells Zed that he will handle the monsters, filling the young boy with joy. Fate acknowledges the burden but accepts, motivated by memories of his family in that village. That night, the villagers complain to Zed for bringing the exiled man, but Zed reassures them that Fate is extremely powerful, having seen him defeat warriors firsthand. Despite this, the villagers remain skeptical and reprimand the mayor for not hiring capable warriors to protect them from the moss. Under pressure, Seth's father promises that he will personally find combatants the next day, causing concern among the villagers, worried about whether they can withstand attacks in the meantime. The mayor, remaining calm, assures them that Fate will serve as a temporary safeguard, buying time for the rest of the village. This declaration deeply angered Fate, who immediately wanted to intervene, but Seth stopped him, pleading for him not to pay attention to the mayor's words. Later, seeking to apologize, Seth invited the protagonist to have tea, explaining that he could not prevent what had happened. Calmly, Fate replied that he was already used to mistreatment, and then asked about his wife. Seth, visibly saddened, revealed that she had been killed by the monsters, as the village was too poor to hire warriors to protect her. While watching his young daughter, Seth confessed that since her birth, his perception of the mayor's authority had changed. He now understood that everything needed to change for the child's well-being. Fate, noticing his change, admitted that he had realized it and asked Seth to tell him everything about the monsters. Seth explained that the creatures had first appeared a month ago, and according to witnesses, there was not just one, there were several, and they could fly, something the village had never faced before. Fate's stomach growled again, and Seth offered him some food to calm himself. The young man explained that he had thought that with a few warriors, they could defend the village, but because the monsters could fly, it was impossible. The situation had changed completely. Fate consulted with Avaricia, who informed him about the type of monsters. They were gargoyle-like creatures, with above-average intelligence, capable of trying various attack methods. Fate noticed that they attacked similarly to kobolds, in groups and coordinated. At that moment, Seth's daughter interrupted, asking whom Fate was speaking to. Smiling, he replied that he was talking to himself, and the girl gave him a candy. Moved by the gesture, Fate asked if she wanted to play with him, to which the girl excitedly said yes. Seth attentively gave Fate more food, but shortly afterward, Fate began feeling unwell, alarming both Seth and his daughter. The little girl explained that the candy came from her grandfather, and Seth panicked, thinking that her father might have truly intended to sacrifice Fate. Before they could react, desperate cries of villagers rang out from outside. The gargoyles had attacked, devastating the village and launching flames. Avaricia tried to wake Fate, but but due to the effects of the drug he had been given, he did not respond. Acting quickly, Seth prepared an improvised antidote to help Fate regain consciousness. Meanwhile, the villagers, aware that they might have to sacrifice him, called out his name in desperation. Finally, Fate opened his eyes. Seth instructed him to vomit everything he had ingested, and once he recovered, Fate asked where he was. Seth explained that they were in his house, and that he had been drugged by his own father's orders. Showing no resentment, Fate stood up and told his friend to stay inside while he went out to face the situation. Stepping outside, Fate encountered total chaos. The gargoyles were destroying houses, throwing fire from the sky. Avaricia warned him that the flying attacks were a serious problem, to which Fate responded that he knew and activated his evaluation ability with his eye, identifying the monster's levels and abilities. His sword suggested using the giant scythe to confront them, and Fate accepted the recommendation. He climbed to the top of a building, activating his scythe and preparing for combat. A gargoyle launched a fireball, which Fate easily cut apart. Avaricia joked, reminding him that his sword could cut through anything, but clarified that while the sword could cut magic, fire was another story. Suddenly, several gargoyles combined their abilities to create a massive fireball. Without hesitation, Fate used another skill, stopping the attack and eliminating all the gargoyles. The ability had already activated, and Fate acquired the fireball skill. With this new ability, he felt confident and prepared to face the leader of the gargoyles, a level 47 enemy with 2 skills, fireball and fire resistance. Avarice warned him that he had to attack before the leader launched its fireball. Following the instructions, Fate struck with a powerful blow from his giant scythe, eliminating the enemy leader, acquiring the fire resistance skill, and improving his attributes. The next day, Zed observed the devastated village alongside Fate and his daughter, informing him that Seth's father had died and only a few survivors remained. Fate evaluated the area with his skill, discovering that the land was infertile and unsuitable for cultivation, confirming the severity of the situation. Impressed, Zed asked if he knew how to use the evaluation skill, to which Fate replied affirmatively. Curious, Zed asked why, being a warrior, he did not earn a living using only that skill. Fate reflected and confessed that Gula was a power that defied divine laws, leaving him no choice but to fight. Zed sighed and told Fate that he needed to find work in the city to support his daughter, which moved the protagonist. Then, with tears in his eyes and a humble gesture, Seth asked Fate to strike him, wishing to make amends for all the suffering he had caused. Avarice, hearing this request, advised the protagonist not to hold back, claiming that this would allow Seth to feel at peace with himself. Fate, with a slight smile, told Seth to grit his teeth and, without hesitation, struck him in the face, causing him to fall to the ground. Avarice immediately scolded him for not moderating his strike. However, Seth, still with tears streaming down his cheeks, sincerely thanked him for hitting him. After this emotional moment, Fate bid farewell to his friend, reminding him of the importance of taking care of his daughter, while Seth promised he would, and asked Fate to take care of himself as well. With his heart slightly lighter, Fate went to his parents' grave, lamenting the village's disappearance. Yet, he found solace in knowing that his memories with his father would remain intact, and before the tombstone, he solemnly promised that from now on, everything would go well. The scene changes to Roxy, who approaches the Lanchester territory. She informs her companions that they will stop to resupply upon arrival. Mugand, cautious, advises her to be careful with Lord Lanchester. When she asks why, he responds enigmatically, prompting Miria to scold him for keeping so many secrets about Waldart. Meanwhile, Fate is reprimanded for yawning too much during the journey and failing to watch the carriage they are traveling in. The owner, annoyed, complains, reminding him that he paid 3 gold coins expecting him to fulfill his duties. Avarice is outraged by the low payment, and Fate, unfazed, assures the man that he has nothing to worry about, as he is well trained in combat from his time as a knight apprentice. The man, relieved and happy, looks at him with respect. Suddenly, the group is intercepted by bandits who block the road, demanding all their valuables under threats of death. Without hesitation, Fate jumps down from the carriage and presents himself as the opponent to the bandits. Avarice, annoyed, scolds Fate for not asking for more money before accepting the job. At that moment, the carriage owner, terrified, rushed toward him, pleading for protection, mentioning his wife and children. The bandits, confident in his fear, advanced, but suddenly, a cursed sword fell from the sky, eliminating all the attackers. Fate was astonished, and Avarice whispered that only one person could perform such a feat. The mysterious young woman, who had previously crossed paths with Fate during the kobold incident, appeared again and reminded him that he owed her a favor. She then asked the carriage owner if she could travel with them, and he agreed, grateful. Her heavy weight caused the carriage to tip over, and the young woman instructed her sword, Sloth, to return to its normal form to fix the problem. During the journey, the young woman asked Fate his name, and upon hearing it, admitted she would remember him as Fate, the one with Gula. Surprised, Fate asked how she discovered this, and she explained that she also possessed a skill related to the 7 deadly sins. Intrigued, Fate asked what she meant, and the girl scolded him, saying that Avarice had told him nothing. Avarice, meanwhile, pretended to be clueless, while the young woman introduced herself as the Mane of Wrath. Suddenly, her stomach began to growl, and she confessed to Fate that she was very hungry. He gave her some dried meat, which she devoured quickly. Their conversation was interrupted by the carriage owner, who informed them that they had arrived at the city. The scene shifted to show a girl being intimidated by 2 disguised men until a sacred knight arrived and defeated them. The young woman was fascinated and asked his name, Rudolph, Lord of Lanchester. Varicia and Fate, witnessing the scene, wondered what kind of circus had arrived, while the carriage owner explained that Rudolph was preparing the welcome for Lady Roxy's Gallia expedition. Fate listened, surprised, as Varicia laughed, commenting that they had arrived earlier than expected, which frustrated him greatly. The carriage owner handed Fate the 3 gold coins for his work, but Mine quickly took them, declaring that she would keep them since she had saved them. While Fate hesitated about what to do, Mine perched herself on his back, forcing him to carry her through the city. Varicia asked him to be considerate, reminding him that Mine was not exactly light. Fate asked about her, and upon doing so, his sword silently complained, causing Mine to scold him for speaking, to which he responded by telling her to remain quiet so people wouldn't think he was talking to himself. Finally, they received a welcome in Lanchester from 2 citizens, and Fate asked if they venerated the sacred knights there. Observing closely, he noticed symbols on the necks of the people who greeted them. During the tour, they encountered 2 guards who blocked their way, explaining that the area was for citizens only, but they indicated where the travelers could find accommodation. Fate observed the different symbols throughout the city and wondered what they meant. Avarice suggested that the symbols might represent social classes, commenting with some annoyance that the leader didn't even pretend this wasn't a caste system, and that was probably why the inhabitants revered him. However, after a few moments of thought, Fate concluded that these strange symbols he observed in the city must mean something deeper, something beyond a simple caste system. And that concludes this summary. If you've made it this far, I'd really appreciate it if you could subscribe and leave a like, as it helps a lot. With nothing more to say, see you next time.